Hi everybody, my name is Crystal and welcome to Point of Grace Reviews. This is my first ever YouTube video, so I'm super excited. Usually I am on Facebook, so if you're on Facebook, go like my page, Point of Grace Reviews, and if you're on Facebook and you've liked my page and you're switching to YouTube, don't worry, I will post things, reviews on Facebook, but not videos. So I'm super excited. So this is video number 1. And if you are new to Point of Grace Reviews, what it is I review Christian fiction books and inspirational books and different things like that. And so yeah, let's get started. For my first video, I decided instead of actually reviewing a book, I would kind of do mini reviews on my top 10 favorite books. So today I will be talking about my top 10 Christian fiction slash inspirational books. Number 10 is a book that I've just previously read last semester, and it was a book that I had to read for class because I'm a Christian Studies major, and I just fell in love with it, and that is Love Beyond Reason by John Ortberg. This book is such a great inspirational book. It's all about God's love and loving yourself and loving God and how much God loves you. And if you're really struggling with the whole concept of God giving his life up for you and loving you, you really need to read this book, and it's great. And I feel like it has this really cool analogy to rag dolls, and I just loved it. So go read Love Beyond Reason by John Ortberg. Number 9 is a book by one of my favorite authors, and she also appears again on this video in the countdown. And a lot of these authors will appear multiple times because I have a lot of favorite books by them. And so number 9's book is A Bride Most Be Grudging by Deanne Gist. And this book is about a girl. It takes place in the colonial period, and she becomes a tobacco bride, and she's kind of forced to marry a man, and she's a lady, and they treat her like she's not a lady. It's just crazy, and you really need to read this book. It's really good. I really enjoyed this book. This is the first book by Deanne Gist. It wasn't my first book that I read, but my second book. But it's her debut novel, and the story is really easy to get into. And it's, if you're looking for a historical romance, Christian fiction, this is definitely the book to start with. Number 8, like you've seen, is The Chance by Karen Kingsbury. I actually do not have a copy with me. I donated it to my church's library, so I don't have a copy. That's why that was just a picture of it. And The Chance is such a great book. I just loved it. It's my favorite book by Karen Kingsbury, and it's about childhood friends who grow apart but then come back together. And the storylines are just great, and it's really emotional, but it's also a really great read. So if you're into contemporary romance, I would definitely recommend The Chance or any book by Karen Kingsbury because she's such a great contemporary author. Number 7 is The Shack by William Paul Young. And if you haven't read this book, where have you been? You really need to read this book. It's such a great book. It's probably one of my favorite books that I've read in the past couple of years. And it really just spoke to me in so many different ways. And the book is about a man, and it's told inspirational type, but also like a story too, which I really appreciated, which was a little different than what I've read before. And this man loses his daughter. I believe she's kidnapped. I'm not sure. It's been a long time since I've read it. And it's just his quest to find his daughter, but So he goes to this place, the shack, and he actually meets God, and God appears to him in a form and as a large woman, and it's just crazy. And there's funny parts at times, and then there's really like cool parts at times, and it was just such a fun read, which really shocked me because I had read the back of it. And I didn't think that it would be it was just as heartbreaking and heartfelt like it said on the back of the book, but I didn't expect it to be such a fun read. So definitely go read The Shack. Number 6 is Michael, or Michelle, or Michael, or however you pronounce that name. There's a little bit of debate about it. By Gillian Smith. And I'm going to say Michael because that's what I've always heard and stuff. So, Michael by Gillian Smith was such a great book. I read it on my Kindle about a year ago, and I loved it. And it's still a book that if I don't have anything to read, I'll go back and reread on my phone. Um, it's about Michael, David's first wife, who's the daughter of Saul, and it starts off when she's, I think, teenage years, and goes to when she gets older. And it was really interesting to see. Gillian Smith has a great writing style where it makes you think of the characters more as real people when you read their story in that way, rather than these like mythological, like awesome people, and you realize that they did have faults, and they did have these like incredible stories, and to see them come to life on in a book is just great. Michael is the first book in the Wives of David series. There's also Abigail and Bathsheba, and both of those books are really good books, but Michael is definitely my favorite. Number 5 on my top 10 favorite books is The Atonement Child by Francine Rivers. This is definitely a really good book. It's not my favorite Francine Rivers book, but it's definitely up there with the top couple. This book is about a girl named Dina who actually gets raped in the first chapter of the book, and she's this really like Christian woman. She's engaged to a guy that's going to become a preacher, and her life's really good, but then that happens to her, and she gets pregnant by the guy who rapes her, and her life suddenly shatters before her, and she's questioning God, and she's questioning why this is happening to her. Everybody's telling her to do certain things that she doesn't necessarily want to do, and this book is a really good book because it's all about God's plan and God's love, and I just really enjoyed this book. Number 4 on my list is the Left Behind series by Tim LaHaye and Jerry B. Jenkins. I believe I read the Left Behind series when I was in, I think, the 7th grade, somewhere around there. It was my first ever Christian fiction book that I had ever read, and I loved it. The books were just so great that I really got intrigued with the story and the characters, and it was so well written. Tim LaHaye and Jerry B. Jenkins does a really good job of making you get inside these characters' head and really connects you with the characters. And even though like some characters come and go, and then you get introduced to new characters later on in the series, and I was kind of nervous because you kept getting introduced to new characters as the series went on, but you fell in love with those new characters as well. And I loved the entire series. I'm not finished reading it yet. I'm on like I think book 10 or 11, so I'm almost done. This series is like 13 books, so I'm still reading them. But my favorite so far of the Left Behind series is book 6, which is called Assassins, and it's great. So if you haven't read the Left Behind series, I really encourage that you do. Number 3 is Crazy Love by Francis Chan. Francis Chan is such a wonderful author, and this is my favorite book by him. He just has a way of explaining things and uh, writing things in a way that you understand them, and I love Crazy Love. It's such a wonderful book. I cried throughout almost the entire book. Not that it was really sad, but because like it was touching me in different ways. And Crazy Love is about God's crazy love. And there's so many quotes in the book that I can tell you about and that I quote. And I just really, really love this book. Number two is Measure of a Lady by Deanne Gist. I love The Measure of a Lady. It's my favorite Deanne Gist book, and that's why it's number two, because it's such a great book. Deanne Gist is such a wonderful author. She writes historical fiction, and she does such a great job at getting into the time period and really integrating that whole history and faith, and it's wonderful. Measure of a Lady is about a girl named Rachel, and she's, I think, older teens. I believe she's around like 17, 18, maybe even 19 years old. And she goes to San Francisco in 1849. And 1849 is a time where, ladies, if you're a proper lady, you were supposed to act a certain way, dress a certain way, and different things like that. And she wants to protect her younger siblings. She has two younger siblings, a boy and a brother and a sister. And she meets this saloon owner, and from there, there's a spark and a tension, and it's just wonderful. And it's all about finding your worth in God and not necessarily about what other people think of you. My number one Christian book of all time is such a wonderful book, and if you haven't read this book, I really encourage that you do. It's such a great book, and that is Redeeming Love by Francine Rivers. This is my standard for Christian romance. Francine Rivers is my favorite author, and she does such a wonderful job writing. She has a great writing style, and she has wonderful storylines and characters and everything. This book is my favorite. It's a retelling of Gomer and Hosea in the Bible, where God tells a prophet to marry a prostitute, and through that he shows Israel an example of His love, and it's it's a retelling set place in 1850, and there's this girl named Sarah, or Angel is her prostitute name, and a guy named Michael Hosea who's a man of God, and God tells Michael to marry Angel, and through their marriage and their ups and their downs in their marriage, God shows Sarah how much he loves her. It's such a great book, so if you haven't read it, I really encourage that you do. So yeah, those are my top 10 Christian books of all time. I hope that maybe you saw some books that you are interested in reading or that you've read before and you're like, yeah, that is a good book. And I'll leave a link down in the description box to my Goodreads if you're interested in any of these books, because I believe most, if not all, are somewhere on my Goodreads. And also some books are on my Goodreads that I really want to read, that you might be interested in reading as well. So yeah, I really hope that you enjoyed this video, and I cannot wait to make more videos for you in the future. I hope that you have a wonderful day. God bless, and bye.